One Piece, chapter 1136, The Country That Awaits the Sun. Oda came back with an absolute banger this week. It's been a while. I feel like I've been talking to you guys about a chapter in a long time, so let's really enjoy this one. We're not sure when the next one. No, it did not say no break, so I'm assuming we're gonna get a chapter next week. We should. Fingers crossed. Either way, let's get to the cover story, man. Let's talk about this cover story, the Yamato's pilgrimage. She captured who's who, and now we're at a place where we're looking at a hideout, a hidden hideout. Here's my thing. How is there a hidden base in Udon already? How does this exist? Bro, going through Udon, people should have been vetting this entire area to make sure nothing was there, because you guys were just taken over, two decades ago. Either way, you guys just went through something extremely diabolical. I would be taking as many precautions as possible. So for this to just be here, a hidden base, bro, we gotta tighten up security. Wano, we gotta tighten up security. So we're here with Speed, Tama, and Hold'em. And I mean, it could be who's who. It could be Jack, because we don't know what those people are. And they're just building up a base to strike at some point. Maybe they're waiting for Kaido to come back. I don't know, but either way, this should not exist. They're saying this is why Yamato was needed, because if she wasn't here, they wouldn't have known about the base, and they would have mounted a coup, and things would have went right back to the way it was before. Slow down. We don't know who's in charge of this base. And in general, like I said, if it's who's who, we're not worried about who's who. So generally, we just gotta do better. Now, let's get to the chapter, because this one was a good one. It was a really good chapter. Not gonna lie, it was a really good one. We're celebrating just our heroes, Luffy and the Straw Hats, and of course we have the Hiriden, their guys. They're championing Luffy, the parent. And ultimately, I think this chapter was showing, or the early parts of the chapter, showing the Straw Hats and their personalities. We have Luffy talking about meat, you have Usopp lying, you have Sanji like fawning over the women, you have Zoro being edgy, Aura farming, which we don't complain when Zoro does his thing, right? He was doing his thing, but it's just showing the personality of the Straw Hats in this element, in this party element. And it's like, a very chill vibe, jovial vibe that we typically like with the Straw Hats. Like at the end, it's like an end of arc vibe, but it's like a celebration because these people are the champions and the heroes for people like Hiriden, Dorian Brogy. And so ultimately it's a celebration, right? The main thing about this section is Mountain Beard, Ja Rule. He's talking about Loki and the Sun God, and he's describing the Sun God to Luffy. This is very interesting because Luffy, it's one of the few times that Luffy's actually paying attention to a story and listening very intently and responding in kind. Now, of course, Luffy's still oblivious. He's still Luffy at the end of the day. So the things he's saying is just like, come on, Luffy, I need to put two and two together a little bit. But they start talking about the Sun God, and he starts describing the Sun God. But they first start talking about the history of Elbaf and the legends. They start talking about the legends. And something key here is that they talked about Nika, and they say he's a god of liberation, but there's also a version of that say he's a god of destruction. Keep that in mind, because that's going to be important later on. But either way, they talk about the god of destruction, the god of liberation, but also he is the god of laughter. This describes Luffy in a certain way. And when we think about a god of destruction, I don't think of Luffy, but then we think of like there are moments where Gear 5 looks a bit terrifying, and you can see Gear 5 being destructive in the wrong hands. But also we thought about or think about all the time with Gear 5 that you can't awaken this fruit if you're the wrong type of person. But what if freedom for you looks different, where you think freedom and liberation is about destruction and creating that space, where for Luffy and others like him, they think freedom and liberation is about just getting rid of the powers that be. So I guess Oda is showing us through this perspective that freedom can be looked at, or freedom in general can be looked at in different ways based on perspective, because that's already been talked about in the series, right? When Kaido talks about freedom, Blackbeard talks about freedom, where it's different from how we view freedom, right? Kaido's like, yo, freedom is basically being able to fight for whatever you want. If you're strong enough, it'll be okay. And so in the God of Destruction part, we're going to focus in on it, and that's going to make more sense just because I think Oda's throwing hints here that we have to focus on, but later. Okay, important stuff. The text. In Elbaf, they talk about the world, and the world apparently has already been destroyed twice before. But in the midst of the destruction, after that, Nika has shown himself in both instances. So it got destroyed before Joy Boy. Seemingly that was the first time, then after that. So, okay, so it got destroyed before Joy Boy and then before then, right? Because Joy Boy essentially failed, and the third destruction is incoming because of the cleansing that the Gorosei were trying to get done. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, here's the major thing here. The overarching theme for me is that, Oda, where are you going with this in regards to saying it was destroyed before, and also saying that sun god Nika is invoked after each instance of this destruction. So is this a cycle that cannot be broken? Is this inevitable going forward where Luffy can't stop it? He can only hope to stop this cycle of it, this version of it. He's this era's iteration of Joy Boy. Or is Luffy going to completely destroy the wheel? Which I'm leaning that way. I'm going to have a video talking about how Luffy can completely do that. But I think it's interesting in adding more depth to Nika, and even the world obviously was saying, yo, it's saying the world has already been destroyed twice before, where, yo, like, why do we keep doing that? Who keeps making this decision? A reset of the world is necessary. That's crazy, by the way, crazy. But he mentions the sun god becoming a symbol, and a symbol for salvation for the people desperate for it. And that's the thing, it goes back to what Vegapunk was talking about, saying devil fruits exist because people desperately needed them. And so for Nika, it seems like he comes around when the world is at a point where Nika is desperately needed. And that goes back to Roger saying we were too early, right? So it's a lot of things coming together. Like Oda's giving us a bit more pieces of the puzzle. We still need more, but things are starting to make a bit more sense, right? But then Ja Rule continues to describe Gear 5, and Luffy's like, yeah, you know, Ja Rule is saying white hair, you know, he has a contagious laugh, he's white clothes, you know, like all this different stuff. And Luffy's like, yeah, I understand how people say like that looks just like me. Don't got nothing to do with me though. So Luffy being oblivious as usual, but I mean, he's describing Gear 5, right? That's what Gear 5 is. Something I've also started to think about is for Nika, like that form or that transformation, is it just based on the rubber fruit? Could Nika exist within another devil fruit, and Nika could just exist in different forms based on the devil fruit? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't just have to be Luffy's devil fruit, model Nika. Like, could it alter a devil fruit based on, I guess what I'm saying, does every devil fruit possibly have this mythical variant based on the person who ate it, right? It's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing, basically what I'm saying. Either way. Interesting. They also confirmed that all the giants, they want to become the sun god. It's like a thing in their world. But then they start to describe Loki. And Oda, I think, is talking to us and trying to throw us off by saying, by having Luffy ask, so Loki's a good guy? And they're like, no way in hell. And I'm just like, whoa. I'm like, whoa, Oda. I didn't think Loki was that bad a guy. And he's like, no, but wait. And so now I'm questioning things because of everything they said next. Something to consider and keep in mind is that the prophecy they talk about is that Loki, right, or King Harold, it was a prophecy that said he was going to be slain by one of his sons, right? So in general, there was an expectation that one of Harold's sons was going to slay him. So I'm sure there was a stigma for one of these kids before he was born. So once Haruden is here, Loki's here, Loki seems to be the more mischievous one. Now it's like that's the one. That's the evil one. That's the one we got to watch out for. So it's like, is this self-fulfilling prophecy? Did you guys force him into this because you were so scared of this prophecy? And so for Loki, it's like, did he try to embody that because you guys forced this on him, saying, one day he gonna kill you, Harold. Harold, watch out for that one. One day he gonna do something. So it's one of those things where it's just like, man, how kids and their environments and how they're brought up could affect just how they behave. But they go on to talk about Loki and Loki's upbringing. It felt like they were talking about Odin, how they used to describe Odin, that Odin was amazing and you can say mischievous as a kid. He was just a bad kid. Like Odin was just like doing a lot of things. Like the mafia banned him, right? He was in the brothel. He was doing so many things. They had to like basically detain him for a number of years. So they talked about Loki's birth and just how a lot of things aligned that spelled doom, like the horse dying, right? Jorul getting killed by Big Mom, right? The queen passing a year later. And so Loki got born into this stigma that, bro, he's bad. Loki's bad juju. Like everything about Loki is not good. And I wonder about that. Is this something that could have been prevented? I don't know, because the prophecy and things like that, it makes things difficult. Now, I don't want to say Loki's a good guy because they say Loki was an arsonist, right? And they say he made the underworld his personal playground at 10, right? At 10 years old. Like I said, remind me of Odin, where Odin went to Kuri and tamed there, but Loki went to the underworld and tamed there, tamed the beasts, even released a few into a bunch of different villages. I thought that was funny. I thought he was just trolling, like, y'all think I'm a bad guy? Here you go. Here's some of the beasts. Yeah, go. You know, it's crazy. He's sick. He was sick. But But something I was honing in on, because they talk about the god of destruction. Look at Loki, right? Because of course that's something when we talk about Loki in Norse mythology and him being the god of mischief, Oda is leaning into that angle. Looking at this picture that Oda drew of Loki, he's laughing a lot like Luffy. So now I'm thinking the god of destruction thing, is that valid for Loki? Does Loki genuinely have a devil fruit similar to Luffy's, but it could be anti? I don't know. It's making me think more and more that Loki genuinely could have a solid case for Joy Boy. Not Joy Boy, but it's the god, sun god. So I don't want to completely write it off, because Oda could be drawing this on purpose to mimic Luffy and mimic Loki as the anti. And now it's starting to set it back up for Loki to be the main antagonist of the arc, along with, of course, the God Knights. But there's something about it that just still doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. So I think there's a twist. I think there's a twist in regards to the death of King Harold. But let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see. Then we get a theory, for the most part, confirmed, but it was like a community theory, right? Saying that, well, it's not necessarily confirmed, but it has more credence. Saying that Loki was wreaking havoc. He even went to the seas. That's why he has a bounty, because he confirmed that he went to the seas, and Shanks caught him. But here's the good part about Shanks, though. Shanks caught him and did not take him to the world government, right? Shanks caught him and brought him back to Elbaf. So there's so many things here, because we know Shanks, celestial dragon, right, affiliated, didn't take him to the world government. He's like, nah, I'm gonna take you back to Elbaf, bro. We going back here, which is, I think that's something that's missing a little bit. That like, hold on, let's think about, hold on, right? But of course, it leads into Shanks talk with Luffy and Zoro. And one of my favorite parts of the chapter, Zoro caught it, them talking about Shanks, pulls Luffy to the side. We got to have a conversation. Pulls him to the side. He says, yeah, I know. I get it. But you have to consider that Loki was lying to you. And Luffy's like, bro, he said he knew where Shanks was. I really want to see Shanks again. My first thought was like, Shanks was right there in Wano. And Luffy said he felt a similar or familiar haki. I was like, why didn't Luffy bound across, But Oda's saving it. Oda's saving it. And it's funny, we're going to get, I'll save that. Either way, this one with Zoro sitting Luffy down saying, let's think about this, Luffy. Love that moment. And of course, based on Loki's personality, it seems like he could be tricking Luffy, and something to consider for sure. But in true Luffy fashion, he's saying, let's go get the key first. And then I'm going to ask him myself. And if he's lying, I'm going to send him flying. And they're like, all right. And Nami's like, okay, you guys are going to try to find this without me. And Zoro's riding with his guy. They're pirates. They're free, right? That's the goal. So they don't adhere to like the giant and everything they said about Loki. They're like, we're going to go find out ourselves. And of course, Nami picked up a new slave in Road, who has become the simp king for Nami. And it's just like, I get it. But Zeus made it clear that he's number one and Sanji's number two. So there's only room for number 3. Road mentioned something here that I think may play a factor. I don't know. It may come into play where he says, Nami, isn't it great that we're both navigators? I'm not sure if something happens to Nami where Road is then used to navigate. I'm not sure, but just something to keep in mind. All right. We're going to probably forget this by next week, but just something to keep in mind. Just throwing it out there. Last part of the chapter, Loki gets my ultimate respect because the Celestial Dragons, they're trying to recruit him. Something else that we have to factor in is that you can become a Celestial Dragon just by being recruited to the God Knights. So they don't just have Celestial Dragon born people that's in the God Knights. No, we recruit you. You become a Celestial Dragon if you become affiliated. So the Celestial Dragons, they're like any other organization. We just try to get strong people and then you just get naturalized. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, Loki gets recruited and Loki's like, why would I join you guys? Why would I join scum like you guys at the end of the day? Like, why would I do that? Which tells me again something about Loki's personality, where is he really a bad guy? Because he despises Celestial Dragons. He despises them. If anything, based on what they'd say is, I don't know if this goes against his ambition to become the sun god and bring about destruction, but he doesn't rock with it. Even he's being offered a noble position. He could fake it for the most part. But he's like, no, straight up, no, you guys are scum. And I'm not gonna lie, I respect that. I respect it. So I'm like, are all these things true about Loki? For real? And again, Oda's trolling. Still not showing Stabs' face. It's not Shanks. Shanks would not go and ask for intel on Loki. Shanks would not ask where Loki is in the first place. This is Stabs, Oda. This is Stabs. It's not Shanks. Now, Luffy and Zoro on their way there. So we may have a generational chapter next week. We may have one of those chapters. So something to keep in mind. Now, we do get a name of one of the God Knights, right? The lady. Her name is Gunko. Decent design. I think she probably should have some pants on, but decent design. Seems to have like a mummy fruit or some bandage fruit, something like that. Dispose of the dog in short order. And then they try to hold Loki hostage and basically hold his dog or his friend hostage and then say, hey, don't kill your dog if you don't. And Loki's like, you know what? Like, kill him. At the end of the day, my man, it probably was his time. It probably was his time to go. What he actually said was, I'd accept my friend's fate and wish him peace and death. It's okay to grieve and rage, but a warrior never kicks and screams in the face of death. So, okay, so everything Usopp doesn't do now. I respect it because he's saying you can't hold my friend against me. My ideals and what I believe in, even with my friend's life in the balance, I'm not going to change and switch up. And I respect that. And he's like, I'll swallow my fury and then I'll release it. I'll use this fury. And use it to fuel me when I reduce the world to rubble. Loki, boy, you got all my respect. You got my respect. I think generally this chapter was a really, really good one, not only for just what's to come, but also the world building, the lore, the thought process in regards to Nika and the generations of it, what's to come, etc. So great chapter. You guys let me know what you think. I thought this was touched on a lot of parts, moving the story forward in a great way, even giving us flashback information. Just great, great stuff. Good chapter. You guys give me thoughts, like the video if you did, subscribe to the channel for my content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BrogDAce. Follow me on Instagram, BrogD.Ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys have been holding it down. You know, link down below if you guys want to check out stuff. You're watching Breaking Bad right now. Of course, Apothecary Diaries, solo leveling, you know, and of course, we're watching Dragon Ball. So Dragon Ball has been fantastic. So link below, check it out. That'd be great. But we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.